610 area code. Who's this?
John from San Antonio. Good afternoon, Sam.
Hi, John. What do you say? How did it go?
I think it went pretty well. I mean, of course, one of the big surprises of the night was Rick Trevino making the runoff, despite the fact that Jay Ewing's the favorite to get in the runoff, raised almost $500,000, according to the last public filing numbers that ended in February 14th. Rick Trevino only raised $24,000,
Wow.
yet he's in the runoff.
Wow.
And it's going to be an uphill battle against Gina Ortiz-Jones, who's a decent progressive, but Rick defied the odds last night, and hopefully he'll do it again on May 22nd. In the 21st District, Our Revolution endorsed Derek Crow, finished third with 23.1% of the vote. The big surprise was Mary Wilson, who finished first with 31% of the vote and will be the favorite against conservative Democrat Joseph Kopser. Now, Mary Wilson was one of the three Bernie supporters in the race. She only raised $38,000, which was the least amount of any of the four Democrats. Kopser raised $772,000. And, yeah.
That's amazing.
And I hope she gets this. Yeah, it is. It's astounding.
That is amazing. I mean, I honestly, that is just, it's mind-boggling. It's 35 times more money.
Yeah. And I hope she gets the support of Our Revolution and other progressive groups. Now, in the 7th District, the Republican pollster, Congressional Leadership Fund, was very accurate in their polling that I described yesterday. Lizzie Pinnell Fletcher was expected to get 28%. She got 29%, and is in the runoff with Laura Moser, was expected to get 17%. She got 24%. So that should be a good runoff.
Do you have a sense of where those other where the support from the other candidates are going to go? I mean, is there a way to sort of like spitball this at this point? Because you're talking about what, like 45% more or less extant that's up for grabs.
Oh, in that district. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say, but I mean, most of the districts most of the people that are wiped out were more conservative. So I mean, you would think that Fletcher would increase her lead, but it's hard to say. I mean, Moser's getting all the publicity. And so, I mean, like I said, out of the 25% that were undecided in that poll, she gained 7 points to where Fletcher only gained 1 point. So in other races, I mean, I think Mary Wilson will win because, like I said, the two Bernie supporters, they're going to go to Wilson from Derek Crow and from Elliot McFadden. And really, in the 23rd, it's the two most progressive candidates are in the runoff: Rick Trevino and Gina Ortiz-Jones. So again, the conservatives may have a tendency to go towards Jones. So but I mean, who knows? I mean, we've seen other people like what's her name? Nanette Berrigan, who didn't win the primary in the California Jungle primary, who was an Our Revolution candidate last fall, and she won in the general election, and she's had a great voting record in Congress. So, I mean, you just got to support the most progressive candidates. And in the 16th District, which covers the El Paso area and is currently represented by Beto O'Rourke, who's running for the Senate, Our Revolution endorsed Veronica Escobar, was the outright winner with 61% of the vote, and she supports Medicare for all, and she will be the overwhelming favorite to women in November. Just if you look at some of the vote totals, that was a little bit disappointing, because if you look at total vote totals, like in the 23rd District, which is Rick Trevino's district, the Democrats got 44,300 votes. Republicans only got 31,000. So essentially, what happened was kind of the fundamentals of the races had better results than some of the polling, which had some of the suburbs doing better, Democratic candidates doing better than Republican candidates. But when you actually look at the vote totals, like in the 7th district, Republicans were up by 7%. In the 32nd district, these are both districts that Clinton won against Trump. Republicans won by 2%. And then some of the other districts, like the 21st district, Mary Wilson's district, Republicans got 18% more. So that's a little bit discouraging in that aspect. But and also, like Beto O'Rourke's totals compared to Ted Cruz were a little bit disappointing. I mean, it's good to see Seymour Hernandez get 24% of the vote. I was hoping that she would get at least 20%, so that's a nice improvement to say that, there's a lot of Bernie supporters that voted for her. Just saying, if you want to be on the map, you need to kind of pay attention to these voters and take them seriously.
But it seems to me, John, that it's a little bit harder to apply the normal sort of, I guess, algorithm in terms of how predictive this stuff is, because on one hand, you saw this like intense early voting turnout, right? Which would be indicative of the depth of the support, and not necessarily as indicative of the scope of the support, at least in terms of the primary. It's also hard to sort of like quantify how much that depth of support is going to translate into other voters in the general. Right? Like, it's easier to mobilize people in the general election. That's fairly obvious. Than in the primary. And you have that early voting is at least an indication of the depth of support, which is how you're going to drive other people to get out and vote. And I would also imagine that on the Republican side, their most voters, there's a big drop off between their motivated voters and their maybe like those middling voters, if you will, in terms of enthusiasm. Whereas you're going to have people who are just slightly more motivated than they've been in the past to go vote, and it's going to be because of Donald Trump, not in his favor. You follow me? Those people who are like full-on Trump supporters who are with the program, they voted in the primary. And then the drop-off, I imagine, is quite stark.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but I mean, obviously you're going to get a much larger turnout, and so I really don't know for sure, but I would have liked to seen all three vote totals, in the most flippable districts where Clinton won. I would have liked to seen all of those have more Democratic votes. But, we just have to live with the way it is and just, campaign hard. I think we have pretty good candidates. I think it was a pretty good night for progressive. It was a good night for women. I think what we saw, like in the 21st district, was that there is a little bit of a generational gap, too, because, Derek Crow had incredible support among the people who attended the Our Revolution meetings, and Mary Wilson did not get a lot of support at all. Yet she received the most votes. And so, I think that women did very well. And I think that older women is kind of what you were talking about before. I'm not sure if, some of the articles you've been referring to, I think they kind of overstate the case. I think that there is a definite advantage in what you're saying, but, there's also intense turnout or intense enthusiasm among younger people also, and in general, there's more enthusiasm among people. But I mean, if you look at the most flippable districts, though, that is a major motivating factor. Is that well-educated people, almost all of those are in suburbs with really high education levels and also earning levels. So, I mean, in a way, that's kind of a shame that people aren't turned off by, income inequality. They're turned off by Trump's uncouthness.
Right.
And but I mean that if any way to get Trump and Republicans out of office and work on the fundamental economic fundamentals, in the long term, that's what we should strive for.
Agree. Thanks for the call, John.